All that hair won't hide how average you really are.
Walk away, while you still have something left to lose.
Bullies hacked off the cheerleader's ponytail. She Roundhouse kicked the clippers away. The cold metallic sound of scissors echoed through the empty locker room at Willowbrook High School, the sound like claws scratching at the soul. Grace Turner, 17, stood motionless among the rows of metal lockers, her long, golden brown hair, her pride since childhood, clutched tightly in Mason Knight's rough hand. Stay still, Princess Mason, 18, the school's star quarterback with a 6'5" frame and cold eyes hissed through gritted teeth. I just want a souvenir. Surrounding Grace were 3 other members of the team, Derek Sullivan, Brad Morrison, and Jake Palmer, all large and giggling as if they were watching a variety show. They had blocked all exits, turning the locker room into an inescapable trap. You rejected me in front of the entire cafeteria, Mason continued, his voice filled with hatred. Now I will show you the consequences of humiliating Mason Knight. The professional hair scissors Mason had borrowed from the salon in town glinted under the fluorescent lights. He pulled Grace's hair taut, preparing to cut the hair she had grown for 6 years, the hair her mother had stroked every night before she died. Don't, Grace said, her voice shaking but not with fear. She was holding back. Don't do this, Mason. Why scared? Derek sneered. The cheerleader thinks she's so awesome. Mason brought the scissors closer, the cold metal touching Grace's scalp. I gave you the chance to be the quarterback's girlfriend. You refused. Now I'm going to cut off your beautiful hair and post it on Instagram for the whole school to see how pathetic you are. That's when Grace decided enough was enough. In the next 15 seconds, everything changed completely. Grace spun around with lightning speed, her left hand pushing Mason's wrist to release her hair, while her right foot executed a perfect roundhouse kick to the wrist holding the scissors. The scissors flew through the air, hitting the wall with a deafening metallic clang. What the hell? Mason exclaimed, but Grace didn't stop. She followed up with an elbow strike to Derek's solar plexus, causing him to double over in pain. As Brad charged from the left, Grace delivered a well-placed side kick to his knee, sending him sprawling to the floor. Jake, stunned by the sight, tried to grab Grace from behind, but she had anticipated this move. Grace ducked low, grabbed Jake's arm, and performed a shoulder throw, hurling him over her shoulder into the row of lockers with a sickening crash. Within 15 seconds, 4 large soccer players were lying on the locker room floor, groaning and completely clueless as to what had just happened. Grace stood between them, her long hair still intact, breathing evenly, and her eyes cold as ice. If anyone touches my hair again, she said, her voice so cold it sent shivers down all 4 of their spines, I won't be so gentle. She picked up the hair scissors, broke them in half with her bare hands, and threw the pieces on the floor in front of Mason. Game over. Grace Turner wasn't born into the elite private school cheerleading scene. She came from the other side of town where trailer parks are crowded and single mothers work 3 jobs to make ends meet. Grace's mother, Linda Turner, died of cancer when Grace was 15, leaving her and her grandmother Helen with a small house and a huge amount of medical debt. Helen, 72, a retired Taekwondo instructor, became Grace's guardian and sole martial arts teacher. Martial arts is not about attacking people, girl Helen taught Grace in her converted garage, which had become a mini dojo. It's about protecting yourself and those who can't protect themselves. But more importantly, it's about building discipline and character. Grace has been studying Taekwondo karate and a little jiu-jitsu since she was 8. By 16, she had a black belt in both and could handle most self-defense situations. But when she transferred to Willowbrook High as a scholarship cheerleader, she decided to keep her skills hidden. Willowbrook High School is one of the best public schools in Connecticut, but its demographics are predominantly upper middle class. Grace, with her working class background and living with her grandmother, immediately became an outsider. Cheerleading was the only way she could integrate into the school's social hierarchy. Grace had natural athletic ability and an incredible work ethic, quickly becoming one of the best cheerleaders on the team. But she still felt like an imposter whenever she attended pool parties or shopping trips that her teammates organized. Mason Knight, on the other hand, was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His father, Principal Richard Knight, ran Willowbrook High with an iron fist. His mother, Victoria Knight, was president of the Parent-Teacher Association and one of the most influential women in the community. Mason grew up with the belief that rules didn't apply to him. He could cheat on tests, bully underclassmen, and treat female students like objects without facing real consequences. Football stardom and family connections created a bubble of privilege that he thought was unbreakable. When Mason first noticed Grace, he saw her as a trophy to conquer. Beautiful, athletic, and popular, but still achievable, unlike the rich girls he dated. In his mind, Grace should feel honored to get attention from the school's golden boy. The problem started 3 months ago when the locker room incident occurred. Mason approached Grace after practice with his signature cocky smile and the assumption that she would melt under his charm. "Hey, beautiful," he said, leaning against her locker in a deliberately intimidating manner. "How about you let me take you to dinner Friday? Somewhere nice, not like the places girls like you usually go." That statement, "a girl like you," immediately set off red flags in Grace's mind. She recognized condescension and classism immediately. "Thank you, but I'm not interested," Grace replied politely but firmly. Mason's expression changed from confident to confused to angry in a matter of seconds. "What did you say?" "I said no, Mason. I don't want to go on a date with you." This shocked Mason to the core. In his 17 years of life, he had never been rejected by a girl so directly and publicly. Derek and Brad, standing nearby, witnessed their entire exchange and barely contained laughter. You, Summerham." Mason stammered, face turning red with embarrassment and rage. Grace simply closed the locker and walked away, leaving Mason standing there with a wounded ego and growing determination to put her in her place. It was the beginning of a harassment campaign that would escalate over the next months. The campaign begins subtly. Grace's gym clothes disappear from her locker, forcing her to borrow smelly spares from Lost and Found. Cheerleading practice schedules are accidentally changed without Grace being informed, causing her to miss important rehearsals and be lectured by her coach. Rumors began to spread. Mason and the crew whispered that Grace thinks she's too good for football players and that she has attitude problems. Some of the teammates began to cold shoulder her, not wanting to offend Mason and lose their own social standing. Grace documented every incident in a small notebook, noting dates, witnesses, and exact details. Helen taught her the importance of keeping records, a habit from her years as an instructor and dealing with difficult students and parents. "Always have evidence con guy," Helen advised. "Truth without proof, chila gossip." The situation escalated when Grace consistently refused Mason's advances. He couldn't understand why some trailer park girl dared to reject him, the quarterback of the championship team and the son of the principal. Psychological pressure began mounting. Grace's car tires were punctured twice in the school parking lot. Her locker was vandalized with crude messages. Anonymous notes were slipped into her textbooks with threats and sexual harassment. Young female students Kak, Bat, Zhao share their own experiences, voy Grace speaking trong hushed tones via Mason's requests. Cho dates by retaliation when refused. Pattern emerged to a systematic harassment, targeting any girl who didn't submit to Mason's demands. Sarah Martinez Mott Jr. told Grace V how Mason had spread false rumors about her sleeping around after she rejected him. "He destroyed my reputation," Sarah whispered trong bathroom. "My boyfriend broke up voitoi parents quatoi, heard gossip to other parents. Whole family drama." Aisha Patel described how Mason's crew had created fake social media accounts. Just cyberbully her Sokiko refused to cheat for him, train calculus test. "They posted my address online, but said I was available for guys who wanted exotic experience." Aisha shared, still traumatized. "I had to change my phone number." Grace realizes she is not alone in this struggle. Mason has a pattern of abuse stretching back years, protected by his father's position and the football team's untouchable status in the community. Tipping point came when Grace decided to no longer be silent. One Monday morning in the cafeteria in front of nearly 300 students, Mason made his most brazen move yet. He approached Grace's lunch table with full entourage voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear clearly. "Grace, baby," Han announced with theatrical confidence, "I'm giving you one last chance to do the right thing. Date me, va all your troubles see disappear. Keep being stubborn, va." Han paused for dramatic effect. "Well, scholarship girls lose their funding for any number of reasons. Threat about scholarships, Grace's lifeline to college education and escape from poverty, hung in the air like poison. He was essentially blackmailing her in front of witnesses using father's position to intimidate. Ton cafeteria fell silent. Eyes turned to Grace, waiting to see Luco see crumble under pressure. He continued to resist school's most powerful student. Grace stood up slowly, notebook trong hand voy, months QA documented evidence. Her voice carried clearly across silent cafeteria. Mason Knight, I have rejected your advances politely multiple times. You have responded bang harassment, intimidation, va. Now threats. This behavior is unacceptable, va. I will not be silenced by your family's position. She opened notebook. Va began reading specific dates, their incidents. Voice growing stronger, voy each revelation. Students pulled out phones, your record sensing something historic happening. October 15th, gym clothes stolen. October 22nd, practice schedule deliberately withheld. November 3rd, car tires punctured. November 18th, locker vandalized with sexual slurs. Mason's face grew redder, voy each accusation. You're lying, Han shouted. Nobody will believe some scholarship slut over November 25th. Grace interrupted, voice cutting through his denial like blade. Mason Knight called me scholarship slut trong public cafeteria while threatening my educational funding. Phones were recording everything. Within minutes, video would be uploaded to social media, voy hashtags, Shutitchan, Mason exposed, Chashan, Grace stands up. Derek tried to grab Grace's notebook. Hunko pulled it away. Voy reflexes honed, boy years, Kuwait martial arts training. Don't touch me, Ko warned, voice carrying undertone of steel. Ma made him step back instinctively. Principal Knight appeared as if summoned, boy some invisible alarm. What's going on here? Ong demanded, surveying scene QA, his son surrounded by recording phones via angry murmurs to crowd. Your son, Grace replied calmly, has been conducting harassment campaign against me via other female students for months. I have documented evidence via multiple witnesses. Camera phones turned toward Principal Knight, capturing his reaction. He was trapped between paternal instinct to protect his son, via professional obligation to investigate serious accusations. My office now, all of you, Ong, commanded gesturing to Grace Mason via core witnesses. Nung damage was already done. Videos were viral. Sheer justice for Grace was trending, but national attention was turning toward Willowbrook High School. Mason's desperation peaked South cafeteria confrontation. With social media buzz growing, va pressure mounting to various directions, Han realized his privileged position was genuinely threatened for first-time Trong life. Rather than step back, they accept consequences. Mason doubled down. Han recruited broader network COA allies, not just football players, Nung also wealthy students to connected families, including some void questionable morals. They access to resources beyond high school's typical scope. Plan they developed was extreme comprehensive intimidation, designed to force Grace into submission hoke transfer away from Willowbrook entirely. Grace began receiving anonymous messages via increasingly specific threats. Photos COA her walking to car-sitting Trong classes, even inside her own home, taken through windows. Messages included details via Helen's daily routine, doctor appointments, via vulnerabilities as elderly woman living alone, voy Grace. We know old lady goes to physical therapy. Tuesdays, va Thursdays. One message read, house is empty, 2-4 p.m. those days. Shame if something happened to family photos, hope medical equipment. Most disturbing were threats targeting Grace's future. Mysterious calls came to scholarship office questioning her character by association voy criminal elements. Fake reports were filed voy police v suspicious activity tie her address. College admission offices received anonymous tips about her violent tendencies, the family criminal history. Systematic campaign was designed to destroy not just her present situation, Hung eliminate any possibility COA escape through education. Grace realized she was fighting not just high school bullies in Hung, organized effort for adult-level resources, vague connections. Fear crept in for first time, not for her physical safety, which she could handle and Hung for Ba Helen Va their shared future, but other students were also watching Va documenting. Jessica Wong, Captain Kua debate team, had been quietly building case file v. Mason's behavior affecting multiple victims. Emily Rodriguez II, student newspaper, was investigating connections between Mason's impunity v. administrative decisions. Even some teachers were beginning to speak up privately, the pattern they'd observed and felt powerless to address. Social media momentum continued growing. Mason night abuse began trending alongside Weshu's Justice for Grace. Students to other schools shared similar stories of a privilege protecting abusers. Parents demanded answers via administrative oversight. Mason's crew realized their window for action was closing rapidly. Desperate measures were needed. Final confrontation came on Thursday evening. Kate Grace stayed late for mandatory tutoring session. Requirement COUA her scholarship. Most students had left campus. Building was nearly empty, except for few teachers grading papers, va custodial staff. Mason, Derek, Brad, Jake, va two recruited seniors. Tony Castellano, va Ryan Murphy, both two powerful families, void connections to legal system, cornered Grace Trong girls' locker room where they'd planned their haircutting ceremony. Last chance, Grace Mason announced producing professional hair clippers alongside barber scissors. Date me publicly apologize for misunderstanding our friendship, but withdraw all accusations. Do this, Vale, you keep your scholarship via your hair. Refuse, Derek added via malicious grin. Va you'll leave Willowbrook bald, humiliated, va scholarship less. Plus old grandma might have some accidents around that trailer. They'd researched her weakness, love for Bahelen Va, dependence on scholarship. Attack on both simultaneously was designed to break her completely. Grace assessed situation rapidly. 6 athletic males blocked exits, weapons designed for humiliation rather than injury. But potential for escalation to real violence was obvious. Her martial arts training automatically cataloged threats, distances available, weapons, escape routes. You have 30 seconds to decide, Mason announced, powering up hair clippers. Buzzing sound filled locker room like angry wasp. Grace's response was swift, va, decisive. I decide, Ko said quietly, that you've all made terrible mistake. What followed was 15 seconds of controlled violence that would become legendary Trong Willowbrook history. Grace exploded into action, voice speed, va precision of black belt who'd trained for exactly this type situation. Roundhouse kick disarmed Mason's clippers, sending them clattering across tile floor. Elbow strike disabled Derek before he could react. Side kick to Brad's knee dropped him immediately. Jake tried to grab her from behind, exactly as in locker room earlier, but Grace was ready. Shoulder throw sent him crashing into metal lockers with sound like thunder. Tony Varian, supposedly tougher additions to crew, rushed her simultaneously. Grace ducked Tony's wild swing, swept his legs but sent him sprawling. Ryan met her spinning heel kick to solar plexus, doubling him over but sending him gasping to floor. 6 large athletic males were disabled Trong under 20 seconds. Grace stood among them, Kong even breathing hard hair, still perfect ponytail. Anyone else want to discuss my scholarship? Ko asked conversationally. Mason, clutching broken wrist to fall, stared up at her Trong, absolute terror. What are you? I'm someone who's done being quiet, Grace replied. Unbeknownst to participants, everything had been recorded. Security camera upgrade months earlier included audio recording, capturing every thread, every piece of evidence Mason's crew had inadvertently provided. Additionally, Emily Rodriguez to school newspaper had received tip we planned confrontation, Va positioned herself to live stream events through cracked locker room door. Video was broadcasting to student newspapers' social media accounts Trong real time. Grace had also activated voice recording app on phone before entering locker room, creating additional evidence trail. When campus security Va police arrived, called by multiple viewers, COA Emily's livestream, they found comprehensive documentation, QA premeditated assault attempt, the Vayer extortion conspiracy. Game was finally over for Mason Knight Vay crew. Within hours, evidence was compiled. Vayer delivered simultaneously to multiple authorities, State Department of Education, local district attorney, FBI Civil Rights Division, Vayer national media outlets. Grace, accompanied by Ba Helen Va pro bono, attorney arranged through Emily's journalist mother, confronted Principal Knight Trong his office the next morning. Also present, DA investigator, State Education Department, Representative Va Mason's own mother Victoria, who had demanded to know truth about her son's behavior. Mr. Knight, Grace began formally, I'm here to present evidence COA systematic harassment abuse of power, Va conspiracy involving your son, Va administration of this school. She laid out comprehensive documentation, notebook entries, photos, videos, audio recordings, witness statements to 17 different students, VA security footage to multiple incidents. Your son has conducted campaign COA intimidation targeting female students for over 2 years. Grace continued. Pattern shows escalation to verbal harassment to physical threats to attempted assault with weapons. Administrative response has been consistently inadequate, suggesting institutional cover-up. Principal Knight sat frozen watching his career, VA family's reputation crumble in real time. Mason Pale Vea, clearly shaken to previous night's humiliation, couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Victoria Knight studied evidence with growing horror of rage. As details mounted, her son's threats, language used, systematic nature, COA abuse, her face transformed to defensive mother to disgusted human being. When audio recording played Mason's threat about scholarship sluts, Tony's menacing comments about Behelen Victoria, Knight stood up, slapped her son across a face. Voice sound like gunshot. How dare you, she whispered, voice shaking, fury. How dare you become this monster? She turned to Grace, tears streaming. I am profoundly sorry. I raised him better than this hoke I thought I did. Whatever consequences come, he deserves them. The investigator spoke up. Mr. Knight, both Senior Vea Jr., you're looking at serious criminal charges. Conspiracy, assault, terroristic threats, harassment, civil rights violations. This has escalated beyond school discipline. Within 24 hours, everything changed. Mason Knight, Derek Sullivan, Brad Morrison, Jake Palmer, Tony Castellano, Va Ryan Murphy were arrested. Va charged multiple felonies. Their affluent families hired expensive lawyers. Hung evidence was overwhelming. Va public pressure enormous. Principal Richard Knight resigned in disgrace, facing investigation into administrative misconduct, Va potential civil rights violations. School board appointed interim leadership committed to transparency, Va accountability. Victoria Knight, devastated by revelations about her son, became unexpected ally Trong reform efforts. Using her position Trong community, she advocated for policy changes. Vea helped expose network CRUA privilege, me had protected abusers. Justice for Grace became national phenomenon. Grace received messages to thousands of young women sharing similar experiences. College scouts took notice. Not just CUA her athletic abilities and hung her courage Va character. Media coverage exploded. Grace appeared on national news programs, speaking articulately about systemic abuse, strong educational institutions, their need for cultural change. This isn't about revenge, Grace told CNN anchor. It's about accountability. It's about creating an environment where students can learn without fear, where privilege doesn't protect predators. Student body rallied behind Grace. Even former Mason supporters acknowledged evidence but joined calls for reform. Brittany Stevens, head cheerleader of Mason's ex-girlfriend, publicly apologized for years Kua silence v behavior she'd witnessed. I was afraid, Brittany admitted Trong School Assembly. Afraid Kua losing popularity, afraid Kua being targeted myself. But Grace showed us courage looks like. She stood up when rest of us were cowards. Systemic changes followed rapidly. New anti-harassment policies void clear reporting procedures. Independent oversight committee to investigate complaints. Mandatory training be consent respect for bystander intervention. Zero tolerance policy, show retaliation against victims. Regular surveys on school climate and safety. Most importantly, culture shifted. Students began calling out inappropriate behavior rather than staying silent. Teachers felt empowered to report concerns. Parents demanded accountability to leadership. Mason Knight, after extensive legal proceedings, was sentenced to therapeutic boarding school, void mandatory counseling be violence consent but privilege. His football career was over. College scholarships were revoked. Other crew members faced various consequences: suspensions, criminal probation, community service, mandatory therapy. All lost their positions. Trend teams, VA student government. Grace graduated valedictorian boy full academic scholarship to Stanford University. In her graduation speech, she reflected on journey. Year ago, I thought strength meant staying quiet, avoiding conflict, hiding who I really was. I learned strength means standing up, speaking truth, protecting others who can't protect themselves. She paused, looking out at audience that included Ba Helen, beaming Voy pride former teammates now committed to change. Sherman Voix, even some CUA Mason's former crew who'd undergone genuine transformation through consequences. We didn't just change policies here, Grace continued. We changed culture. We proved that privilege doesn't protect predators anymore, that victims have voices, that good people will stand up when they see injustice. Years later, Willowbrook High became model for schools nationwide dealing Voy harassment via privilege-based abuse. Documentary film The Grace's Story won awards, sparked legislative changes. Grace herself became civil rights attorney specializing trong educational discrimination cases. She never forgot lesson v power Shua, standing up speaking truth, Vol refusing to be silenced. Ba Helen in interview for documentary summarized transformation. I taught her martial arts to defend her body, but she learned to defend her dignity, her future Va dignity, Shue, every student who comes after her. That's real black belt. Grace's 15-second response to attempted humiliation had lasted barely long enough for I to blink. But waves 2, her courage continues spreading, ensuring that future students won't have to face alone what she had faced. Sometimes defending yourself changes everything. Not just for you, hung for everyone who needs courage to stand up after you've shown them how.